Hi, my name is Zach. I'm the creator of PointInTimeCount.com or Hyperion, and in this video I'm going to talk about the major things you can do with Hyperion to give you a sense of if the product's right for you. So when you go to admin.pointintimecount.com, you'll have the option of logging in or creating an account. Obviously, you'll want to create an account if it's your first time. Once you've done that, you'll be dropped right into here. And one thing I want to stress is that you can do this today, even if you haven't paid for the product. So every account comes in trial mode, which acts almost exactly like a fully activated account. So you don't have to worry about guessing whether the product makes sense for you. You can do basically everything you can do with a fully activated account, get a sense of if it's right, and then if you do end up wanting to pay for the product, then we'll just upgrade your account that you already created. So you don't have to worry about losing any work. Now you can see there's a few tabs on the left here. There's really a few that are more important. You're only going to use the shelters tab if you're doing a sheltered point time count, and you don't even have to use it for that. It's just if you have a bunch of shelters and you want them to be able to select which one, this could be useful. Under organization, you can pick your COC's name or update it. You can add new administrators, and you can select the COC boundary, which basically draws it on the map for the volunteers. Questions is more important. So under questions, we preload your account with question sets for different situations. So there's two different variations on the pit count. We also have an observation form for the pit count, which is basically just a much smaller set of questions that a volunteer could fill out if they see someone who they believe is homeless. And we also have the volunteer registration form, which just has a few questions about the volunteers. And it's pretty easy to edit these. This is a survey editor that you can use. You can do things like reword questions that we have preloaded for you. So there's a few common variations of this one, for example. People might want to ask, what is your first and last name? Instead of asking four initials. Another common question that we get is date of birth. So I'll show you how to do that. You go to properties, and then you change this to a date. And obviously there's all types of different questions. You can do signatures, HTML is useful if you want to have if you want the volunteer to read something to the person they're surveying, for example, you can fill out a bunch of detail there. But these are kind of your common question types. Once you like what you see, you can test it in test survey and fill it out exactly like a volunteer would. You can also see what it looks like on different devices. This isn't quite right. I mean, it's more based on the size, but it's still useful. You can also add survey logic. So one common thing is there's some questions you might want to ask if the person's over 18. So you can add your own conditions here, where you select a question and then you say the condition, and then you can do things like make another question visible. This automatically saves, so you don't have to worry about losing your work. And then when you like what you see, you can go under the Home tab, and you can create your first survey. So you can use Hyperion for anything, any kind of surveying you want, and many COCs do, for just kind of one-off data gathering, outreach, those kinds of things. But I'm going to cover the point time count case today. So you give it a name. We provide you with a code. If you're on the sophisticated plan, you can update that to whatever you want. If you're unsophisticated, you can also split up your COC into different zones. If you want to do observation, you just select the observation form here. I mentioned volunteer registration earlier. Again, that's for sophisticated. And then you can select the interview questions. We'll come back to this page, basically, when we have some data, because honestly, it's not super interesting to look at without a lot of data. Really, the important one that you'll want to know about is the Settings tab, because that includes the web page that the volunteers will go to when they're filling out surveys, the survey code, which they'll need to enter, and you can also update your survey name and the survey mode. So basically, the important thing here is that every survey starts out in training mode, which means that volunteers can fill out surveys and they're not sort of counted when it comes to things like analytics. They're sort of clearly differentiated between training surveys and live surveys. And to update to live, you just click live and save. But for now, we're going to take a minute to look at the volunteer side of things. they are going to go to pitcounter.com. And this is a web page, obviously, and it's on a computer. The computer is more for my convenience for recording these videos. Obviously, the vast majority of people fill surveys out on a phone. And I'm going to make it look a little bit more like a phone to give you a sense of what that looks like. The next thing they're going to do is they're going to enter the code that you're going to provide them for the specific bit count. And they're going to fill in some generic information. Now, this is actually just used for metadata. We don't actually do anything with this phone number. We don't call them. We don't even validate it on the simple plan. It's just there so that you have that information if you want to reach out to a particular volunteer during the bit count or afterward. So then this is kind of the main screen. They also have access to a map, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and they could theoretically change the bit count code if they wanted to. They're going to click Start Survey. They're going to share their location, and it prompts them for every survey, and it gets the most up-to-date location at that time. They can enter a custom location if they want to. This was introduced early on, and it's useful if someone wants to say some other information, some other landmark or something like that. But generally, it's not needed if they're sharing their latitude and longitude. And they'll click Start, and they're going to fill out the survey, right? So at this point, they're talking to someone experiencing homelessness, they're asking them questions, and they are filling it out. There's a few questions like this one, have you completed the survey earlier today, that we add just to easily screen out those questions. And if they say yes, it's going to just end the survey at that time. So I'm just going to fill this out quickly. When they're done, they get this information, and they can see here every past survey. It'll just show the last three. They actually have to click see all to see all of them, but they'll have an indicator to show that it's actually been successfully uploaded. And the moment it's successfully uploaded, it's actually deleted off their device. So it's available obviously for the admin, and you can see right here on the admin side that the survey is already visible. This web page updates in real time. And if we go to the map, on the admin side, we can see that we have a new entry with that information. But let's go back to the volunteer side for a little bit longer. So I talked about the map earlier. So they have access to a map pretty much like the admin one. The difference is obviously it doesn't show any survey data. It just shows their current location, the boundaries, which is either going to be the COC boundary, or if you have uploaded regions and you're using the Teams feature, it's going to show more specific regions that they should be focusing on. And it'll also include any hotspots. I don't have any hotspots here, but it'll also show any hotspots so they have access to that information. So that's basically it for the volunteer side. I'll have a different video for covering these sophisticated features, but that's pretty much it. Next, we'll look at a survey with a lot more data so you can have a sense of how that works. Alright, so now let's take a look at the admin dashboard with a bunch of additional data. So this is the map, as we looked at before, and you can click on an entry to get more details about it. And this will show all of the actual survey answers broken down by each household member, but it'll also show you the way that they are being categorized for the analytics. And you can update any of those things if you want to as well. It'll also show you the location that the survey was at. If you want to go back there, it'll let you change the survey status to a live survey if, for instance, someone filled it out at the wrong time. More often it'll be the other way around. If you find out later that someone didn't have internet access for some long period of time or something, and so they submitted some surveys after the bit count was actually technically over, you can mark them live. Or if something's invalid for whatever reason or a duplicate, you can mark it here as well, and that will automatically remove from the analytics. And similarly for housing status and shelter as well. And going to the data, this is actually kind of a powerful screen. You can do some basic searches over here, which will search against all of these different places. So you can search by a volunteer's name, or like phone number. You can search by like name. So if I search SR here, or even like an ID, if you know that and you want to get back there. But there's a lot more powerful filtering available here, more targeted, because you can filter based on particular fields in a way that's not just going to filter against everything. We automatically convert the latitude and longitude into a county, city, and zip code, so it makes it easy to get analytics broken down in that way. And you can see if we look at the map here, this is just this county. And I mean, there's basically anything you could imagine filtering by, you can filter by through here. Another example is you can filter by individual questions. So if you just want to know, let's see, where they stayed last night, you could filter it based on that. And this will only show answers that actually exist in the data set. Filter by volunteer, by shelter if you're doing that. Yeah, basically anything. Next, we'll look at the reports. So there's kind of 3 different ways, well, I guess 4 different ways now that you could actually sort of make this data available. The most obvious is that you can download it. So if you click this download button, you can download whatever you have filtered, all live surveys or all the surveys. And so like obviously if you filter it down, then that's going to impact the filtered one. It's not going to impact these. And when you do that, you can download a raw CSV, which will include all the data, and like it's human readable. You can download an HMIS CSV if you want to import it. And then you can also download it as hotspots if you want to import it into a future pit count or something like that. Also, if you just wanted to import it into some mapping application. So that's one way that COCs use the data. Another common way is through this HUD Exchange page here. So we make the data available to you in the same format that you'll need to import it into the HUD Exchange. We add this additional one over here for unknown. This is actually new. Anyone who is a head of household with an unknown age will show up here, and that way they need to be like addressed in some way, whether that's like evenly distributing them, just like all the other people you have valid ages for, but they need to be like addressed. But then all the rest of these are identical, right? So you can see the exact breakdown over here, and let's see. Yeah, these are all pretty similar, what you expect. There's also a PDF report, which you can download, which basically is the same information, but available as a PDF. You can add and remove particular sections. You can get additional breakdowns by particular questions. You can update the report name and subtitle. And then there's also a new feature here, which is a dashboard. So basically, this is a dashboard that by default doesn't exist. You have to enable it. But once it's enabled, anyone can go to this link and see a breakdown. So this is like an example of roughly what it would look like, and it's going to update in real time. So you could do something like embed this on your website after the pit count if you want to just make that data available pretty easily. You could also, if you want to like display it during the pit count, so anyone can get like a running update, you can do that as well. The one thing I'll stress is because you haven't done, because the pit count is going on, it's going to reflect the data that you have available at that time. If there's like duplicates, obviously it's going to be a higher number. That's just one thing to consider. There's also a little bit more here. So there's this volunteer breakdown where you can see every volunteer, their phone number, how many submissions they have, when they last submitted a survey, and then you can also see anyone who's logged in but hasn't submitted a survey yet. You can also view the survey forms, and then you can also update the surveys as well. So if you go into questions and you want to add a new question, you can just select it here, save it, and it'll be updated. And then we also have an extrapolation and deduplication tool that you can explore. But that's basically the admin dashboard in some more detail. If you have any more questions, feel free to email me at zach@hyperionData.io. Thanks.